when you especially have small children, other things fall to the wayside more easily. You don't have as much time. Someone needs your time. You're really done by the end of the day. When the kids' bedtime comes around, you're done. And I know that. And that's not going to change until they get older. But what can change is your intentionality. Okay. I know you're up early. I know you have kids waking up in the night still. I know that your spouse may be off at work and it's all on you a lot of the time, and all you want is a minute. But just like we talked in previous podcasts about where do you want to be down the road, when those kids get older, your most important relationship is still the person that you married.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Brooks McDonald Show. I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Carrie Beth.
Hello.
And we are wanting to spend some more time talking with you, as always, in motivation and in our Christian walks around marriage and relationship. The most intimate relationship outside of your walk with the Lord that you have. And we have walked all roads of that. Fair enough?
Yep.
It's been a long journey on a well-tread road, friend. But when we started seeing a marriage therapist, which is something highly encouraged, we were way too far into our marriage because, again, when you think of marriage therapists, well, then you got something wrong. See, and transparently, we did in ways, and we learned more in therapy what we had worked because we were 17 and 18. We got together, and we just kind of did it on our own, you know. But I encourage anyone. Therapy doesn't mean broken. Therapy means that you're intentionally working. It's like a pro athlete that works with a physical therapist or with a psychiatrist. They exist to get the best out of you and to dig deep to find things that may be under the surface that they can ask the right question or discussion or say the right word to get you where you need to be. Sorry, tangent. And so that therapist that we were talking to, she reminded me that marriage is like a garden. And in a garden, you have all that you walk into. Me and Carrie Beth, in our old age especially, we love to wander through a beautiful garden together. And we're in these beautiful gardens. And what you always see, like we were in California at this one, where were we? Newport Beach at this library and garden. And what was all around us were gardeners out there tending the garden. And she said, Brooks, that marriage is like a garden, that even though in marriage you don't intentionally put anything bad there, if you leave a garden alone long enough, unattended, weeds will begin to grow. Things that you did not plant will begin to sprout and choke out the good, healthy, beautiful plants. It will take over your garden completely with weeds and kill all the beautiful things over time. And you didn't do anything necessarily to make it that way intentionally. You just left it untended. Woo! Boy, that hit me between the eyes. And it kind of, one thing, when I walked down that mental path, I thought about how being an entrepreneur and a business owner, the one thing, if people ask me what I was really good at, is delegating, identifying qualities in people, their abilities, encouraging them in those abilities, and then delegating the things that they were better at than me to them. And I was really good at delegating and freeing up time. And the reminder was, Brooks, you can't delegate marriage. You can't hire gardeners. I was hiring gardeners for my business garden. I was hiring gardeners for, these businesses and what they were doing and tending it. And I could watch it. In your garden of marriage, there are no gardeners to be hired. You are the gardener. You have to spend the time in that. I know maybe some of you are like, duh, but some of you needed to hear it, and it's something that really should hit you between the eyes. What are your thoughts?
All right, where my mom's at, okay? I can speak to what I know and where I've been and what I am, right? So if you're a mom and have kids of any age, but this will especially hit you when you have young children. We're tired, y'all. We're tired. And someone always needs you.
I thought you said retired. And I was like, you can't retire. We tired. We tired. Not, you can't retire. We tired.
We are tired. Someone always needs you. Someone's always touching you. It's a beautiful season, but it's a messy season. Okay. And for us, what we found and why we're passionate about helping the next generation through this is that when you especially have small children, other things fall to the wayside more easily. You don't have as much time. Someone needs your time. You're really done by the end of the day. When the kids' bedtime comes around, you're done. And I know that. And that's not going to change until they get older. But what can change is your intentionality. Okay. I know you're up early. I know you have kids waking up in the night still. I know that your spouse may be off at work and it's all on you a lot of the time. And all you want is a minute. But just like we talked in previous podcasts about where do you want to be down the road, when those kids get older, your most important relationship is still the person that you married, okay? And if that is neglected that whole time because you're just parenting, hear me, parenting is good. But if you're never giving any time to your spouse, how is that relationship going to be mended? And when you hear me say, I did not do a good job at this when my kids were younger. And I just want to encourage you to take some time, even when you're so tired, just say like, this is our time. And for this amount of time for the day, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look at my spouse with not a kid on me. And we're going to talk about what's really going on and we're going to connect. Just that little bit of intentionality with us would have made such a difference. Now, thankfully, we have found a totally different path, but I just want to encourage you if you're in that season or any season. I now have children that we divide and conquer to drive all over town all evening, but we have a priority that we stick to. So even if you haven't talked to your spouse about this, if you're hearing this today and you're like, man, yeah, we really should do this. I want to do that, but will they want to do that? Talk to your spouse and set some time, set some areas where you can set aside time for each other.
Yeah. And I mean, I think too, that's dreaming together. That's coming up with the next game plan because it's being a team and working together. When I say it's like not two roommates passing in the night. And that a lot of times with young kids, it can become that easily. You know, it's so intentionally, as even guys too, if you've been married young, is giving credit to your spouse that they are competent in the discussion. And so when you're sitting down together, it's not to point out where they're wrong or to lord over them, but it's to truly hear their heart and trust that the God that puts you together and designed that relationship has she or he has a lot to bring to the relationship, and you see them in the light of positive. And that's where I say for Carrie Beth, there were times in our relationship where it was in a really, really rocky place. But what Carrie Beth did is she spoke in the way that Christ would. And she even would say, like, it's the words Christ would have. You're seeing them the way Christ loves them. And over time, with wounds and heartache and just people aren't perfect, you can allow yourself to look at your spouse differently and to hold grudges against them for things. And some of that may be in the root of it an important something that needs to be dealt with. Like there are some people watching this that may be in relationships that it isn't good. The best interest isn't at heart. But I'm also here to tell you that the Lord has a way to get you through it. And additionally, piling on top of what Carrie Beth said is that are you putting God as the head of the relationship? You think of like a triangle, and at the very top is God, and you're on the bottom corners. Is that as you each individually draw closer to God, you don't even know it, but you're drawing closer to each other. And especially in your walk, as you have a common theme of growing closer to God, as a couple, it brings you closer together. And it's like a circle, but it's not a circle. It's a triangle to bring you closer to the Lord. Sorry, I could. It was all I saw was the movie, and it's a circle. Rob Schneider, but and truthfully though, is that time to pray, because a lot of it too is we lack faith. We lack faith in the relationship game of, God, man, this person's been like this forever. They ain't changing. Do you serve the same God that I serve, that can change hearts and change minds and rebuild and mend and pierce people's hearts and prod them to be better people? Do you doubt that God can't do that in your relationship? And that's where a lot of people need to be, is you're too stubborn to think that God can do something in them that you can't. Well, I'm here to tell you, you need God to do it, because you need to shut your mouth. There's a lot of us, it's like, as a human, your human brain and rationalization ain't working, and you need God to speak and speak through the Spirit.
And if we want to, little sneeze there. If we want to look at examples, the Bible is a living word. And recently, in what I've been studying, has been talking about Saul. And he's talking about, you not believe in the God that I do that can change people. Guys, Saul was persecuting, killing Christians, and then became a mighty force for God. I'm here to tell you firsthand, it can be in the depths of what you think cannot be saved. But if you and your spouse are seeking God's will for you, yes, it can. God heals today just like he always has. Okay? But you have to ask him and allow him to work in you and on your marriage, and you got to take responsibility for where you're at. That's the other thing. You can't just allow yourself to see your spouse differently and say, well, you. This is a two-way relationship. Okay? Yes, we're leaning into God and we're trusting him, but take responsibility. You cannot control that other person. That change is not on you, but you can control how you see that person, how you deal with that person, how it affects your emotions. And you can ask God to give you the words, ask the Spirit to be in you, to give you the way to deal with them. This was just my advice to one of our young people in our group, is no matter what he comes at you with. Now, hear me. Be safe. There are situations I'm not ignoring that there sometimes are situations that are not okay. Okay. This is in a normal relationship where you're both trying. Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of people even want to make it to where it's the worst, and maybe it's not. There's a cop out a lot of times. They're like, well, no, you don't understand. It's irreparable.
Yeah, no,
and it's not.
I was meaning abusive. Okay, let's call it what it is. Okay, but you've got to trust. Just ask God for yourself to help you see how you can be. Okay, just like we talked about being tired at the end of the day. Use everything that you have in you to get to what you want to be. And I'm telling you, your marriage, if your marriage is good, I guarantee you that your life is good. Okay?
Yeah.
If your marriage and this number one relationship on earth, okay? And some of y'all need to hear that. Well, my friends, my parents, my family, whatever.
My social media contacts.
Yeah. Your number one relationship on this earth is your spouse. And so you need to treat it that way.
Yeah. And I think about for us, like, as we have grown and we know what healthy is, just like you do. And what does our healthy look like for us is making time together. And I'm not ignorant to the fact that our time freedom that we worked on allows us to be intentional on time. But don't hear me like, oh, well, you can do that. No, you can too. There is time that you make to be able to do this. And we found that walking together and taking time, even creatively so. So like a lot of times it's in the morning, but earlier this week, Brody had to be somewhere, and Carrie Beth was taking him. And so we went, and I rode with her because Blair could stay by herself and do some studying. It was right down the road. And while he was in his event, me and Carrie Beth walked across the street to where the hospital is, and we walked around the hospital a bunch of times. And it was special too, because we had to kind of like mentally pray over the hospital, but also just connect and decompress on what's going on in the day, where we're trying to head, and find even in our busyness, that time. And that took intentionality, for us to be there. and your spouse appreciates that. I appreciate that she's like, yeah, no, let's do that. She probably appreciates it. I'm like, yeah, let me go with you to do that. It's those little things and knowing those love languages of to where to be able to connect to.
Yeah, I think there's another thing too of like there's so many depths to marriage where people can think like what is intimacy, right? Well, intimacy is so many things. Those little touches of the time that you're intentionally spending together and being together, those are also intimate, make you want to be intimate in a different way. There's this balance between your best friend and the strongest person by your side and your love, right? But the deepest love that matters, that's going to get you through every stage of your kid's life, every stage of your life, is that deep love that's cultivated by time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And so, I mean, again, around communication and taking times. Now, another thing that is an idea, just tangible pieces, is writing notes to each other. And so we have a little notebook that it's not every day, but, a couple times a week or so, we trade it back and forth. It's just kind of, if I wrote something, I give it to her. She writes something, give it back. Or sometimes maybe she'll write two in a row because she's just kind of a reminder, hello, are you going to write me a note? But that we write physical notes to each other and we text each other affirmations, because again, unlike a business partner or whatever, to where you're just kind of working and you're trading off tasks and that's kind of it, and then they go off to 5 o'clock to wherever their house is, different. This is an emotional relationship and connection that you got to build. And even when they have work life development to where there's lunches together, they're trying to create culture in their work to try to solve that. It's the same thing with your marriage, of being able to create depth of relationship. And then a lot of time is each individual person working towards just listening. And sometimes, especially in youth, I say it, but anybody, you may go into like, yeah, but if I sit and listen, they'll never give me a chance to talk. Well, maybe you need to just listen. Maybe that is true. But also, if you're walking into the conversation with that mentality, is all they're going to do is talk, they're going to tell me stuff, they're never going to give me a chance, I'm never going to be share, it's going to be take. You need to check your heart. You need to say a prayer for God to touch your heart to be able to give you. And speaking from experience in that she needed to offload stuff to me, or I needed to offload stuff, and she sat and listened. And a lot of times where I deserved way more than just a listening ear, that she sat and walked through that stuff, with me, and that you're communicating, because with that is communication. Because in this day and age where there's uniquenesses of technology and social media, there is a dark space in all those places. And I can tell you from hearing countless stories and knowing and seeing people walk through life together, there's somebody else out there that would love to listen to your stories. But if you walk into a situation and you find yourself speaking and telling those things to somebody else other than your spouse, then you need to build a red flag. And if you're not walking in prayer or close enough to the Spirit, those red flags and those proddings may not even be there. That's why you got to walk in relationship with the Lord. But even God's going to try to give you doorways out, and you need to be attentive to the doorways, because it doesn't need to be in a social media or text or friend relationship with the opposite sex that you're finding fulfillment of these discussions with anyone else. That's not necessarily physical, that's emotional support. And that's why me and Carrie Beth intentionally work and check each other's heart to make sure that we talk and that we're the ones that are communicating that. Because guys, odds aren't good. If you ask me about going to Vegas or not and what your odds are, I'd say you kind of just gamble, because even on roulette, if you put it on black, it's 50-50 that you're going to win. That's marriage statistics these days. It's 50% 50 that you're going to make it or not. So you got to get serious about this. And Satan wins when he's like, God, that's not you. You're fine. You're not in those situations. You're not physically abusing her. You're maybe not emotionally abusing her. It's okay. You just don't talk to her a whole lot. It's fine. It's little kids. She'll get over it. She can get over it. She's a big girl. Those are things where Satan gets the wins, to where in some ways even got to be corny. You got to go back to corny love that just is simple words. And yes, maybe you don't think you require words of affirmation, but they do. And you need to make sure and serve. Some of it, I think a lot of it comes back to, sorry, I'm rambling, but is service and serving the other person and putting their needs before yours. And just like the movies War Room or Fireproof, Fireproof is around just serving that other person, even if you're getting smacked while you're doing the serving, and trusting that the Lord's working in that relationship in that heart. I was the recipient of that service in my life, to where Carrie Beth was loving and pouring on me when I was undeserving and was ugly. She just loved on me. And then God pulled me up out of it alongside her. And that may be where you're at in your relationship.
And then I also want to say, like, you're hearing from 38 and 39-year-old marriage that have been married for 18 years and have been together a long time. And so that's just wisdom. And when we're 60, we're going to have even more wisdom. And so just know, like, everybody's in a different place. Just like we say, don't look at social media at somebody's house or somebody's financial situation they have. Don't look at social media and see somebody else's marriage and say, I wish I had that. I promise you their marriage is not what it looks like. Everybody has stuff. Okay? We're humans. We work through things. But I love this quote. I'm pretty sure it was Mike and Kara Ayala that are our buddies in our mastermind that said, marriage should be the ultimate mastermind.
Yeah.
And for a lot of our marriage, we did not live like that. But we have learned that together, having the same goals, working together in faith, in business, in just relationships, and serving, that like we build each other up. We are growing on our own, but growing together. And like that's been the biggest difference maker for us, is talking about dreaming of what we can do next and how can we make more of an impact and how can we serve more. So it doesn't, and it doesn't have to be like when you sit down and have these conversations, like he's saying, don't assume that it's going to be like, okay, let me hear how the day was or how I did something. No, sometimes it might need to be that. You need to talk about things, but it can be really great stuff that you want to do together and talking about how you're going to get there. Okay. And also when you hear us talking about parenting, this is also on my heart. We never mean to be negative about parenting. We're real about parenting because we've been through a lot of stages of it. It's a blessing, but I'm here to tell you it is even more of a blessing when your household is in a happy, healthy marriage, and that's the way that you parent your kids, because they are seeing mom and dad come together and parent them in a healthy way. And so, yes, kids can be a distraction. Yes, kids can make it tougher, but also you created these children together or adopted them, whatever it may be. You're in this together to raise these children. And so let that be something you're excited to work on. Instead of when your kid has a really hard time or something's going on with them and you got to figure out how to help them, don't like take it against the other person too, of like, oh, this is your fault too. Brainstorm ways together how you can help that kid, because you're going to feel so great when you give it to God and you together figure out how to get that kid on a better path.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I mean, too, it's over long periods of relationships, there's a lot of personalities that live and die together. And some of it, again, shout out to Mike Ayala, was talking about you die a lot of times in your life because your parent of young kids dies to the parent of parent teenagers and then single and then empty nesters and where you're headed. And in a relationship, you're going to have to morph and grow and kind of like a butterfly in a cocoon, just grow into these things and change and be different people. And you've got to be able to walk in that through as many years as we've been together, and Lord willing that we have ahead, it's growing. And just like if you go into a physical coach, that's in a gym, that's a trainer, and you're 80 pounds overweight and they can walk with you a path to improvement, and you believe because you've seen examples that it has, the same as in marriage. Those same growth opportunities of improvement are there. You just have to go a different way than a physical training to work on improving and growing. And then you do things like where we together, we don't stifle each other's dreams. So we have safe space of discussions of like no ideas crazy. And we just kind of share crazy ideas of what ifs. And sometimes I get to hear Carrie Beth's heart on stuff, but in a fun way, where she's dreaming, and I'm excited to see that little kid side of her dream. And same with us, and we find these commonalities, and then we figure our lane, because back to an earlier episode we had about having our 5-year plan and our goals and ethics and who we stand for, our mission statement as a family. We find that common ground that can be woven into those plans, and we actually execute on them. So in a couple weeks, we're heading out in an RV. One of Carrie Beth's dreams was to be in foliage season and leaf peeping up in New England, and she's giving fist bumps there. But and that's a dream that we created. We figured out how to put it in place, and we're executing on that. We had saved up gajillion miles with Southwest Airlines, so if you ask how we do that, sometimes my mother-in-law is going to fly the kids up a week into the trip. My parents are going to fly up and fly the kids back a week early from the end of the trip so that they're not missing school too much. Plus fall break kind of falls in there, so they're only out of school for a week and a half. We've intentionally put them into a private school that allows for freedom. Think, these are all planned things from early on, that when we found a school that was okay with traveling, we found ways to have financial freedom and time freedom to be able to do this. We save miles to where, yes, we have a budget that we live on, so we can use this to help supplement our budget to where the miles are perfect. I literally had to buy just a few more miles to finish out to where it bought 7 plane tickets of 2 ways with that. But I don't have any more Southwest tickets, but honestly, Southwest doesn't fly as many places down here, so we shifted to Delta. So I'm just saying it all worked tangibly. This isn't just like a pie in the sky thing. True execution. We bought a 5th wheel. We've got the 5th wheel ready. I went last week to make sure that the slide outs work on and everything. Those are just real specific small examples of how, maybe small to me, probably not small to you when you hear, okay, during the school year, you're going to be gone for a month and how you did that. It's possible, guys. You just have to put ideas and plans to it. Reach out to me, reach out to Carrie Beth, reach out to your mentors and say, hey, I want to start down these paths and time together. But I apologize. Let me back up and say something. It doesn't have to be 4 weeks off in an RV somewhere. It can be a cup of coffee on the porch together that means the world. It can be a conversation about your kids today. Don't let my excitement about what I have coming up to, oh, here we go. See, I can't do that. It doesn't have to be that. And 22-year-old Brooks and Carrie Beth didn't have that in our minds. I mean, we were excited to go to a University of Memphis basketball game and to dinner together. And she probably wished I was just more intentional of going to the park when the weather was nice. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I just feel this on my heart to say this is a very tangible thing you can do with your spouse that makes a big difference in communication and just being there for each other. So whatever it looks like for you, whatever time of the week works best, I would really encourage you to sit down with your spouse and look at your calendar for what you have going on that week. We actually have a shared calendar. Maybe that doesn't work for you, but for us, it works to have a shared calendar. Look in your shared calendar, talk about what you have that week, and then ask the simple question that is this: how can I help support you this week? Because that shows your spouse that you care. How can I help you? Okay. So for him, it looks like, all right, how can I help with the kids? What do I need to be for pickup? Or whatever. Hey, you want to work on this? Okay, well, where can we get you time to do this? For him, it's maybe meetings we need to take about investments or business or whatever. Being on the same page with what you have going on and that simple act of saying, how can I help support you this week is huge. And that's a conversation starter for you. And that's a communication for you. And so I would really encourage you to at least take that step this week.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here and listening through this. We appreciate you. Please give us a like and a follow and share and reach out to us. Hope you have a great day. Just lean into the Lord today and to look how you can serve Him. Thanks.